In a small, peaceful town, there stood a house that many envied. From the outside, it was the picture of perfection. A warm light always glowing in the windows, a lush garden where laughter often echoed, and a couple who seemed to embody happiness. The husband, a successful businessman, was admired for his kindness and generosity. The wife, gentle and graceful, was loved by the neighbors for her warmth. Together, they appeared to live the dream life everyone secretly desired. But as the sun set each night, a different world existed behind those closed doors, a world few could ever imagine. Beneath the flawless smiles at family dinners and behind the sweet greetings to neighbors, something sinister was growing. The house that seemed so perfect during the day carried whispers of arguments at night. Low voices, muffled cries, and shadows moving restlessly in the dark. It was the beginning of a story that would soon unravel the illusion of happily ever after and expose the terrifying truth hidden inside what many called the perfect family home. As days turned into months, the cracks in their perfect marriage became harder to hide. To outsiders, their love still seemed strong, but within the walls of their home, silence grew heavier than words. The wife often found herself alone in the evenings, staring at the untouched dinner she had prepared. Her husband would come home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers, his phone always clutched tightly in his hand. When she asked, he would laugh it off, kiss her on the forehead, and assure her it was just business. But her heart told her otherwise. Late at night, when he was asleep, she would search his pockets, scroll through his phone, hoping it was all in her head. But what she found shook her to the core. Messages hidden under fake names, secret meetings disguised as work trips, and photos that left no room for doubt. The man she thought she knew, the man who had promised her forever, was living a double life. Her mind was torn between denial and rage. She wanted to scream, to confront him, but every morning he put on that same charming smile, and for a moment she wondered if she was the crazy one. Yet the signs became impossible to ignore. Neighbors whispered that they had seen him with another woman. The night began like any other. The neighbors saw the warm glow of lights behind the curtains, heard faint laughter from inside the house, and assumed the couple was enjoying another peaceful evening. But what they didn't know was that beneath that glow, the storm was finally ready to break. The wife stood by the bedroom window, her face pale, her hands trembling as she held a glass of water. She hadn't spoken a word all evening, but her silence screamed louder than any fight. Behind her, the husband leaned in the doorway, his eyes fixed on her with a chilling intensity. His smile wasn't one of love, it was sharp, twisted, almost predatory. "You think you can hide things from me?" His voice cut through the still air, low but venomous. She flinched but said nothing. For months, she had been hiding letters that revealed truths about him that could ruin everything he had built. Secrets of financial fraud, secret affairs, and whispers of debts that no one in town would ever believe. If those letters came to light, his image as the perfect husband, the flawless man, would be destroyed forever. The wife took a deep breath and whispered, almost inaudibly, "I can't live like this anymore." That was when the atmosphere shifted. The husband's expression hardened. He stepped closer, each footfall echoing like a countdown. His shadow loomed over her, stretching across the room like a dark omen. "Then you won't live at all," he hissed. What followed was chaos. A glass shattered on the floor. The neighbors later recalled hearing a thud, like furniture being overturned, but dismissed it as nothing unusual. No one dared to imagine the horror unfolding inside. The wife tried to run, her bare feet slipping against the polished wooden floor, but he was faster. His hand gripped her wrist with such force that her skin turned red beneath his fingers. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the thick walls of the house. "Please, don't!" she begged, her voice breaking. But his eyes were no longer human. They were cold, void of empathy, like a predator that had already chosen its prey. He dragged her back into the bedroom, the door slamming shut with a force that rattled the walls. Inside, the struggle continued.
The house was silent,
But it was not the kind of silence that brought peace. It was thick, suffocating, like the air before a violent storm. The neighbors still believed in the perfect image of the family, the smiling couple who waved politely every Sunday morning. But inside, that illusion had already cracked beyond repair. After the incident in the bedroom, where the wife had woken to the unsettling noises in the dark, she could no longer look at her husband the same way. His gentle touch now felt like ice, and his smiles seemed hollow. She watched him closely, noticing small details she had once ignored. The way he avoided her gaze, the way he locked his study every night, and the faint smell of metal that clung to his clothes. Her heart raced with a mixture of fear and curiosity. What was he hiding? Why did the man she thought she knew suddenly feel like a stranger living under the same roof? One evening, while he was showering, she crept into his study. The room was immaculate, too immaculate, as if staged. But there was something off. She noticed scratches on the floor near the old wardrobe. Heart pounding, she pulled it open. At first she saw nothing but coats and boxes stacked neatly. Then, behind a loose wooden panel, she found a hidden compartment. Inside lay a collection of objects that didn't belong to their life together, things that made her skin crawl. Old photographs of women she didn't recognize, their faces marked with red ink, jewelry, earrings, bracelets, a locket with initials she didn't know. And at the very bottom, a knife. Its blade was polished, but dark stains lingered in the crevices. Her breath caught in her throat. Every part of her wanted to scream, but she forced herself to stay quiet. She shoved everything back in place just before he returned. That night, lying next to him, she felt trapped, like a prey animal curled beside its predator. She didn't sleep. The next days blurred into paranoia. Every sound in the house made her jump. The creak of the stairs, the closing of a door, even the ticking of the clock felt louder, heavier. She thought about going to the police, but what could she say? That she found some jewelry and an old knife? Without proof, they might dismiss her, or worse, warn her husband.
In a small, peaceful town, there stood a house that many envied.
From the outside, it was the picture of perfection, a warm light always glowing in the windows, a lush garden where laughter often echoed, and a couple who seemed to embody happiness. The husband, a successful businessman, was admired for his kindness and generosity. The wife, gentle and graceful, was loved by the neighbors for her warmth. Together, they appeared to live the dream life everyone secretly desired. But as the sun set each night, a different world existed behind those closed doors, a world few could ever imagine. Beneath the flawless smiles at family dinners and behind the sweet greetings to neighbors, something sinister was growing. The house that seemed so perfect during the day carried whispers of arguments at night. Low voices, muffled cries, and shadows moving restlessly in the dark. It was the beginning of a story that would soon unravel the illusion of happily ever after and expose the terrifying truth hidden inside what many called the perfect family home.